But Paul, what if the contracts cannot be evenly distributed amongst the players?
Good question, David. But please raise your hand next time.
Oh, sorry.
Welcome to episode 10 of the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
I'm David.
I'm Andrew.
All right, today we're doing a bit of a retrospective. We have 9 episodes under our belt, and this is going to be the big 1-0, hitting some double digits.
The huge 1-0.
The huge 1-0.
Assuming it's in base 10, which it is.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do 89 more episodes, and then we'll have our special 100 triple digit episode.
If we're lucky. Maybe I'll find ourselves a applause prompt of what applause sound effect and then cut it in on the episode 10. All right.
Or you can just leave what you just said in. That's fine.
Recently, I just played Hollywood Blockbuster.
You mean Traumfabrik?
No, I mean Dream Factory. For those of you that don't know, Traumfabrik, Hollywood Blockbuster, and Dream Factory are all the same game from Reiner Knizia. The latest edition is actually called Nightmare Productions, which is also the same game with a horror movie theme. I'm just going to go ahead and describe Hollywood Blockbuster, the game I own, and the others are all very similar, I'm sure, with relatively minor tweaks. In the game, we all play as movie studios. We start with 3 movie projects in production. Essentially, that looks like 3 film strips, where each frame in the film strip is a spot to place a tile. When you fill up the spots on your film, it's done, with some exceptions. The tiles are what you need to fill the spots. The first frame is always for a director, or blue tiles. Then there are frames for sound effects, which are generally green tiles, cinematography, which are purple, and visual effects, which are yellow. There are also spots for celebrities. There are 2 types of celebrities. One is a main movie star that goes in the body of the film strip, and the second can be a guest star. The guest star generally goes into the bottom of any given film, and that spot for it, as outlined, is optional. You don't need a guest star to finish your film, but obviously putting a guest star in is good because it adds to your celebrity count and it adds more stars to your movie overall. So the total number of stars is how you score the film and determine how many points it gets. So each of the tiles I described either have 0, 1, 2, or 3 stars on them. And when you finish a movie, you just add up all the stars collectively from all your tiles, and that's the score of your movie, and you get that many points. The celebrities, on the other hand, also have a secondary purpose, which is really important. Twice a round, once at the halfway point and once at the end of the round, you're going to go to a party. And whoever has the most celebrities gets first pick for tiles at each party. There's always 1 tile per player in the parties, so everyone's going to get something, but oftentimes getting the first pick can be pretty critical. So that's why it's important to collect celebrities. There are 4 rounds in the game, a bunch of awards, and it's a pretty fun closed economy auction game. Closed economy just means no new money comes into the system. And the money we use is just set. Everyone starts with, we had a 4-player game, so everyone started with 12 contracts. And then whenever you win a bid, you pay out that amount of contracts. And those contracts are evenly distributed amongst the other players. So the only way to get more money is to not win bids.
But Paul, what if the contracts cannot be evenly distributed amongst the players?
Good question, David. But please raise your hand next time.
Oh, sorry.
Why are you doing it in that school? I don't know. Why are you doing it in that?
Yeah, like the after school special voice.
Yeah, I was like, what? If the number of contracts cannot be evenly distributed, they're left in a pot for and added to the next auction.
Oh, thanks, Professor Paul.
So basically, in a four-player game, if you paid 6 contracts for something, each other player would get 2. But if you paid 8 contracts for something, each player would get 2, and then there would be 2 left over in the pot. So this game's kind of funny. It's a auction game, which Knizia is known for, but it often gets mistaken for being a part of Knizia's auction trilogy. So just to be clear, Knizia's auction trilogy is Medici, Raw, and Modern Art. So this game is not a part of the auction trilogy, and it has, to date, 4 separate editions. Like, it's much more common to have multiple editions these days, but not then.
It's also common to replace the movie stars and movies in the game with more recent stuff or your favorite actors. That's easily done. You just either write it in or just put your own pictures in, which can add to the fun.
Yeah. I really like the game. It's pretty fun. The person who won actually said, yeah, I won, but I don't really understand why. And I had to refrain myself from telling him why. Like, I could have told him why he won, but I was just like, okay, let's just move on. It was me teaching 3 other people, and I think the 3 other people just found the system a little chaotic because they weren't sure how to bid. And then, well, you don't know what to bid, and then you end up trying to start conservatively. And what happens there is you start building up a lot of contracts. You get a lot of money because you didn't win bids, and then the person whoever won gives you more money. So there naturally becomes this weird bidding war amongst all the people who didn't win contracts in the previous bid. And so they started, like, they weren't sure, like, am I bidding too much or not? So it just got a little chaotic, but it was fun. I still like the game.
I feel like it being closed in the sense of of no new money coming in. I think that really changes the dynamic. I think a lot of board games were used to be able to sort of accumulate and get more over the course of the game. So I imagine that's part of it. Like, that's definitely a new idea for me.
Yeah, it's a really big part of it because contracts are also worth a point at the end of the game. So the game happens over 4 rounds, and rounds 1 through 3, you're basically just bidding and then redistributing the contracts as you see fit. In round 4, you're really thinking about, well, now I'm giving up X number of points, and I'm giving Y number of points to the other players. So should I really be bidding this much for this here? Because depending on where you are in the last round, fewer and fewer of those contracts are coming back to you. But yeah, it's an excellent game. Might be a little chaotic if the players don't have a feel for how to evaluate the lots up for bid. But I still think it's pretty fun.
I really like the game. It's one of my favorites. But at this point, my only real critique is the strategy in the game is very straightforward for the most part. I would like to see.
Yeah, you could almost write an AI to play this, like,
Almost, yeah.
really well.
You could evaluate it. It probably would. But I mean, it's an old game too. I really like the theme. I wish Knizia or some other designer would take the system and put it into maybe a more robust game, like a heavier game, because Dream Factory or Hollywood Blockbuster or Traumfabrik, whatever you want to call it, it's a good game, but it's a light game.
Yeah, I think the real key that makes it work is that it's an auction game where you've made the individual lots up for auction vary in value to each player. And that's kind of delicate in and of itself. So you need a relatively simple game so that reality doesn't, get weirdly distorted or have weird incentives pop up. The more complexity you add in, the heavier you make it, you run the risk of really creating, like, strange incentives for the players. So I think that's why it's relatively light. Like, the system in and of itself is kind of delicate for what you're going for. And then if you add too much to it, you can ruin it pretty easily.
Yeah, maybe.
But, Knizia is just, like, that's his thing. He makes thoughtful games that are pretty simple and elegant, right? For if anyone's wondering, the Knizia Auction Trilogy classically is known as what Raw, Modern Art, and Medici. Does not actually include Hollywood Blockbuster.
No, it also doesn't include Amon Ray. He has a lot of auction games, so it's interesting to reduce it down to 3 specific ones. But those are 3 really good ones. So
I think they were just sort of renowned as his like the variation comes in with the players a lot of the time. Like what the player calls raw, calls the auction for the evaluation, that's huge. The randomness of the lots that come out of Medici, it's just so random, and the player decides when to stop auctioning or when to pull more. It's very player driven, and then modern art. I mean, you're setting the price. There's so many different auctions. The players are really like driving that. That's what those 3 games have in common. That's why it's considered his auction trilogy.
That's cool.
It's not just that they're auctions. The auctions are very player driven. Oh, Andrew, have you played any of those games before?
I actually haven't.
Oh, okay. I mean, they're pretty old, so you have to find someone with old copies to play with. But yeah, they're pretty good.
I was going to say the only one that's old because they keep getting reprinted. So Raw, Modern Art have all been reprinted under different versions recently. I'm not sure about Medici. There's like 5 versions of that game too, but they're all called Medici and they all have terrible art.
Modern art hasn't been reprinted in a while. I know Raw has.
It has been reprinted, just not as Modern Art.
Oh, really? It's been called something else?
There's like 3 or 4 different. Yeah. Yes.
Weird.
There is a version called Masters Gallery, and in addition, there is versions published by Simon, Cool Mini or Not, and Oink, as well as a Korean version and a Japanese version.
I remember Modern Art was pretty popular. I have the Chinese version.
Oh, and a Chinese version.
I really like the art in it. And the player screens were cutouts of Chinese museums, a museum in Taiwan and 4 other museums in mainland China. I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could go love letter with this and just have like a property, like let's say My Hero Academia. You just slap My Hero Academia on all the cards and send them out, and there you go. Modern Art, My Hero.
I don't know. I think it has to reach a certain level of popularity to do that.
I guess.
I think Love Letter did it because like the barrier to entry for it is just so low, and then it got really popular, and then I don't think modern art has the same kind of like appeal to the masses.
Maybe, but it has already been essentially reprinted in several different versions already. So I don't think it's much of a stretch to put an IP on it.
Well, you have to pay for the IP, and if you're not going to see a return for how much you pay for that IP, then why would you do it? Andrew, what have you been playing recently?
Well, the main thing I've been playing on a more regular basis lately was Spirit Island, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, made some new friends online. One of them was really into it, been showing some other folks. It's been cool, learning a lot. Yeah, she plays at a higher difficulty than I'm used to, so I'm a little bit of sort of scrambling to catch up, but it's been fun.
Are you guys playing that online?
Yeah, on via Tabletop Simulator.
Oh, on Tabletop Simulator. Okay. I was wondering, like, did somebody write a implementation of that? That'd be crazy.
There is a very good implementation on Tabletop Simulator, and there's apparently an official app which is less good, but it works. And if you like supporting the official stuff, that's the one to go. But the Tabletop Simulator one is very, very good. Anyways, so that's been cool. And then I actually recently got to try out 2 new games, 2 dragon-themed games, Flamecraft and Wormspan.
Oh, nice.
Worm as in WYRM, hence the dragon theme. So sort of like spiritual successor-ish to Wingspan. And I was pleasantly surprised by it too. It feels a little bit better in that there's just like just a few more things going on. So it still has that same sort of 3 action type structure, and you sort of like, dragons can only go in one of, or have to go in specific environments, and there's 3 different actions, and then as you go along, as you sort of fill out the caves, as you fill out those tracks, those actions get better as you do it. So again, similar structure, similar feel. If you've played Wingspan, it'll feel similar, but different enough that it was a cool experience. I think I like it more than Wingspan, but There's probably some recency bias in there. Haven't played Wingspan in years.
It's heavier than Wingspan?
Pretty similar. I think it's a bit heavier, yeah. Yeah, part of it, like, there's more effects that sort of immediately happen when you do something. So, the 3 actions specifically, there's, playing a dragon, like playing a bird. But to play a dragon, you sort of need to make room for them. So you have to sort of first excavate these caves to sort of create environments for the dragons to live in. And then, so you explore a cave, then presumably that lets you play a dragon in the cave. Once a dragon is there, that then lets your person sort of explore further into the cave, and exploring further gets you more rewards. So that's kind of how those 3 interactions sort of intertwine and intersect with each other.
Nice. How'd you like, what was it? Flamecraft?
Flamecraft! Yeah, that one, Flamecraft is light and pleasant and cute. It's just cute little dragons. You're setting dragons to sort of help out in the shops around town, and they get to do cool things, and it's just very cute and pleasant.
Yeah.
Naturally, I ruined me and one other friend, we turned the flavor from cute dragons from cute dragons helping out around the shop into humans enslaving dragons and making them work.
Harsh. That's dragon trafficking you're going on there.
Yeah, much less cute. So it's up to you how you want to interpret it. But a very pleasant and enjoyable game.
Pirate Rob taught me that game. I thought it was pretty cute and pretty fun.
It's very cute.
It's insanely cute, but very chaotic.
Well, yeah, but like, I feel like that's okay because that expectation's been set at the beginning of the game. When you kind of learn the game, you're like, oh, this is going to be kind of chaotic, and I was fine with it.
I want a list of games that you expected not to be chaotic when it was taught, and then it surprised you with all the chaos.
There's some things where like it's a heavy game, it's really crunchy, you're really trying hard, and then some weird random element that seems really arbitrary just comes up, and then like, what? Why would this be like handled this way? An example of this would be like the thing I like least about Dune Imperium is one of the things where you can draw, and it's essentially a point when you fulfill it. That game only goes to 10 points. The fact that 1 out of 10 points can be randomly drawn just seems really messed up to me. I'm like, what?
Wait, you mean like the intrigue cards you're talking about?
Yeah, the entry cards. Like you can draw one of them, gives you gives you points. Whereas the only other way to get points is to win the conflicts.
You don't just get points; you have to fulfill something. There's a
Yeah, but there's a huge difference between drawing the entry card that gets points and not drawing the entry card that gets points. Like a 10th of your score is right there. And the other players don't even know about it. So if you time it right and you kind of wait to like late to fulfill it, it just feels like this is random, and it's not because I did something fantastic to deserve it. I just randomly drew it. So it just feels like I don't like that in a heavy game. But if it's a pretty light game and you expect some things are kind of chaotic and you're just like, oh, that's an upset, and you're fine with it. It's because I feel like Flamecraft's like that. They just present it as a fun kind of chaotic game. You're like, okay, I'm cool with it. But if you present yourself as a very like tough Euro, and then all of a sudden, wait a second, how'd you get that point? Oh, you just drew it. What? But that bothers me more.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the games I've been playing. David, what about you?
All right, so a game I've been playing a fair amount on Board Game Arena is called Daybreak. And it's kind of the hot new cooperative game. And it's themed around basically saving the world from global warming or climate change or pollution or just man-made gunk, if you want to put it that way. So you start off with one country, or sometimes it's a area of the world and not just a specific country. And each country has its own set of pollution as well as dirty energy and so forth. The way the game works is very simple. You got 5 slots, and so you have 5 starting cards, and then you draw a hand. And on your turn, you play the cards in your hand into the 5 slots. And when you play it, you can either put it in front, like on top of the card that's there, or you can put it behind the card that's there. And the reason you do behind is because each card has little symbols in the upper right, similar to Terraforming Mars, perhaps, or what's another game with symbols like that? Well, innovation is what it seems to be themed after, because like with innovation, you splay it, right, and then you have like a stack of cards with symbols. So when you play on top of the card below it is gone. You can't use its ability anymore, but the symbols can affect the new card, where it would be like gain a leaf for every tree symbol you have, something like that.
Cool. Okay.
Or you could put the card behind the card that's there, so you still have the power. You know, the card that's there is still there, but now it's more powerful, presumably with the symbols you just added. And so throughout the game, you're going to be essentially making these stacks and getting big combos as the game goes on. Because, yeah, it's like most cooperative games, the game just throws a lot of crap at you and you got to deal with it, or the team has to deal with it. So you better be getting these combos going, because if you don't, you're just going to get overrun, like plain and simple. And I found it really enjoyable. Like, it's not terribly new, it's just terribly compact. The game will take about half an hour, less online, but it should be about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Not on your first play. It's decently complex to teach, but after people understand and they can just get going and do their turns quickly, the game goes quickly.
Hmm.
So I did like it. I did enjoy it. I wouldn't say it blew me away exactly, but it took the concepts that we're very familiar with, put it in a tighter package, and the game goes quick. So if you like cooperative games with some explosive like combos and decisions, then this game's pretty good.
How heavy would you say it is?
I'd say it's about Race for the Galaxy heavy, maybe a little bit more because you have to manage stacks. You do have interesting decisions because you can do some interesting things because the game lets you essentially activate cards and play cards in any order you want. So I could, let's say I had card A, I could activate card A, do its effect, then put B over card A, and then do like card B's effect, you know, essentially gaining an extra effect sort of, and then put card C over card B. And then so I've done 3 actions on the same stack. That's a little rare because usually the symbols won't match up, but you know, you could do that. So sometimes the timing of how you activate and how you squeeze out extra actions is really important.
Race for the Galaxy. Okay, that's so. You would say that's slightly more complicated than, say, Pandemic?
Yeah, no, it's more complicated than Pandemic. There's a lot of intricate decisions you have to do with your cards. Sometimes, I mean, there's also luck of the draw. Sometimes you just get cards that don't help you at all, and you have to. There are other things you can do. Each round, some disasters come out, and you can tuck cards under it to help prevent them, etc. So there's a few ways to do other things if your hand is just completely bogus. But overall, you kind of draw, you see what you get, and then you have to tactically plan out based on what you get how you want to proceed. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. And that's just how it is. But again, it's one of those games where once you know it, it's much faster. So that's why I kind of compared it to Race, because Race takes a while with all the learning each action and learning all the symbols and the and how the effects work and how to trade and all that stuff. But once you have it down, Race is like what, a 15-minute game, something like that. Whereas I've seen games, the first game take like an hour or more, just because it's hard to play right away. I think Daybreak is kind of similar. The first game will have a lot of what's this do, what's that do, how does this work, et cetera, and then you flip a switch and then you just go. It's an interesting game. I highly recommend it. Trying it at least. I don't think it's particularly innovative, but it is like good. It's solid in a complex package. There's always interesting decisions, even if you played it for a bit. At least I think so. I haven't played it that much to know if I've played it like 30 times or something. But at least in the first 5 times I played it, like stuff comes up and I'm, you know, figuring stuff out. And it's on Board Game Arena, so you can play it. I don't know if you need a premium account to play it, but if you do, just grab a friend who has one, and you can play it solo on there, so you don't have to like wait for people, which is nice. So you can figure out the game that way too.
You might need a premium account to play it solo.
Oh,
The major difference with premium accounts is the ability to create games.
right.
If you have the premium account, you can create a game and then wait for other players. If you don't. You can join a game and let you play it, but you can't create one yourself.
It goes a lot faster if you create it yourself and wait, as opposed to the other way around. But anyway, if you have a premium account, you can just check it out. Go do the solo. If you don't, I guess wait for other players.
Okay, yeah, I got your comparison to Race because there's similar elements to it. I just wanted a comparison with a cooperative game to kind of give a reference point to it.
There aren't really cooperative. Yeah, I don't feel like there's cooperative games that quite do the same systems. There's a lot. There's a lot where everyone is like playing against. Well, I guess all cooperative games are playing against the game, but there's a lot where it just kind of throws crap at you, escalates, and as a team you have to take it down. Spirit Island, which is mentioned by Andrew, that's kind of a similar theme. If instead of invaders and colonizers, you had pollution, then it's the same theme. And you're not spirits or countries, but whatever. So it's in that same vein. Just stuff's thrown at you. You got to deal with it. Go team. Build up your combos.
I do respect a compact design. I mean, I wish more games did that, honestly.
Yeah, it's not easy. This game pulls it off. If you like that splaying kind of thing and combo building, I think it's probably up your alley.
So that's Daybreak. And that's games we've been playing recently. This is our episode 10. It'll be the close to season 1 of the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast. Today, we just wanted to take a look back over the first 9 episodes and see if we've changed our mind on anything. Our pilot episode, we started with a top 5 list. And the top 5 list, the goal was to select 5 games that we really enjoy with really different mechanics to give our audience a sense of what kind of games we like. Does anybody want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Mainly because, so, my top 5 at the time, I think I had Spirit Island, Great Western Trail, Not Alone, Letter Jam, and The Mind. And, numerous sort of honorable mentions. And there are 2 games that have jumped out to me recently that deserve to go on that honorable mentions list. I'm not sure if it gets into top 5, because again, right, part of the top 5 was based on variety.
Yeah.
But in that case, well, anyways, the 2 honorable mentions, I might mention this over the last few episodes, but there's the Divinity Original Sin board game, which is complete with the whole which goes very well with the Kickstarter bias related episode we talked about, along with the Unicorn Overlord card game, which was, I don't know if I mentioned here, but again, that game is only accessible. Well, now there's a mod for it on Tabletop Simulator, so everyone can check it out there. But otherwise, the physical copy is only available if you purchase this like very deluxe edition of the Unicorn Overlord video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they made
a game comes with a video game. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, only this. If you purchase the deluxe version of the video game, you get this card game. And when my friend bought it, I was thinking like, my instinct is hearing that it's just this sort of like bonus, like sort of throwaway game as a special collector's item, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we played it, and no, it's a very real game. It's a very cool deck builder that has really good, I think, innovations and improvements on the deck building genre.
So the bonus item is in and of itself pretty good.
Yeah, which was part of the big surprise.
Yeah. I've seen that too. I forget what it was. There was a guy from Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Eric Vogel, and he had a game called Cola, which I thought was pretty fun. It's like a game about soda. It's just this quick, fun little card game, and he included it as a like stretch goal bonus item when you bought one of his other games, and then we played it, and I was thinking, hey man, this game Cola deserved its own Kickstarter. So I was just like, oh yeah, this is pretty fun. But yeah, I've seen that before too. That's pretty cool. So Divinity, that's like a campaign game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that definitely, your top 5 does not have a campaign game.
Yeah, so it definitely fits in there. That game is also based on a video game. And so, it's one of those campaign games. It doesn't necessarily do anything new in terms of like genre and mechanics and feel, but it's a very fun experience. And I think I mentioned before as well, one of the big highlights is the setup felt pretty smooth, and the exploration they did very, very well. So I feel like Gloomhaven, comparing to Gloomhaven, at least based on my experience with the digital version, if there's some sort of like exploration interlude, it's just sort of the thing that you do along the way to the main actual sort of like combat and dungeon exploration. Whereas here, there's bigger emphasis on the exploration, but like the exploration part feels a lot more natural as opposed to this sort of obligatory intermediate step. Or think of like Kingdom Death Monster, where again the exploration, where as you're trying to hunt and find the monster, that's just sort of something you do, as opposed to it being a more like integral part of the experience. And the way it flows between the exploration and combat feels really good, as well as you see a lot of branching paths. Designers, they I think correctly advertise that in any given campaign you're only seeing about 20 to 25% of all the content available in the game.
Wow.
For Divinity, and that's felt very true. That's felt very true.
25% only?
That's like a rough approximation, but like it feels like it. We saw there are definitely multiple branching paths, different opportunities to find or discover or enter a specific place and whatever else. And yeah, like whole areas that we just completely skipped and didn't see at all.
So I guess the game that comes the closest to it is Spirit Island on your top 5 list. Do you feel like
In terms of like a bigger cooperative game, yeah. Again, like both those games I mentioned, there isn't quite a counterpart already in that top 5 I mentioned. So if I could expand it to a top 7, we could include those for more variety.
well, I guess the classic example was a top 10, so you might as well get to throw in a few more.
Make it a top 10.
Do you feel like your feelings have changed on any of your existing top 5?
No.
No? Alright.
No. I like those games. Again, the variety, I like those games for a lot of different reasons, and like the Mind and Letter Jam I love how accessible they are, and even Not Alone to a degree I think is very accessible to people less versed in board games and less familiar with them. And I really like what they do there, and it feels nice and unique, in addition to being accessible and enjoyable.
Yeah, I think Not Alone is my favorite game to teach new gamers.
Yeah.
Just to show them that there's like something different. It's not all like the same Euro, the same dudes on a map. It's the same,
Yeah.
I just feel like it's the game that breaks the expectation people have of what board gaming is, and like, hey, look, this is really different, and still really fun.
For sure. I like to throw in Magic Maze for that as well. As another honorable mention, actually, I don't know if I mentioned this one or not. Another really like cute, light, pleasant one is Minara, that I really enjoy. So think of it as reverse cooperative Jenga, where you're trying to build this tower, but you have to build it out of these wacky shaped platforms, and there's restrictions on like how and where you have to put the columns to sort of build up the tower or temple.
The name of the game is Minara?
Minara.
It's spelled Menara.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. And yeah, no, I love the game because it's a different vibe from every other like stacking and like games where you have to try to bounce and everything might collapse, because that one's cooperative. It's kind of rare for that in a stacking game. And so usually when you're playing a stacking game like Jenga, everyone else is rooting for you to fall. And that can be fun. They're all chanting and like, taunting or whatever. But in Minara, everyone is rooting for you to succeed. So in some ways, that's even more pressure, but it's also kind of a supportive, cooperative vibe, which is really nice.
So this is a literal dexterity game then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. David, do you have any changes you want to make to your top 5 list?
I have a slight problem. I didn't write down my top 5. Do you have it in front of you?
I do. Number 5, Happy Salmon.
Just list them all.
Broom Service / Witch's Brew. Number 3 is Dungeon Lords. And then Gaia Project and Through the Ages.
Yep. I remember Gaia Project and Through the Ages. The rest I couldn't quite remember. I know it's not technically my top 5 list. I kind of fudged it a bit just to have more genres and to show off more diversity.
Yeah, the point was to have different types of games so people get a sense of what you like.
Right. Otherwise, Brass, Barrage would probably be in there somewhere. But I do really love those games. They're all in my top 20 for sure, maybe in my top 10. But yeah, no, I still feel pretty strongly about all of them. Happy Salmon is obviously the outlier. That's a very silly, almost dexterity. You just run around a table and high five and fist bump.
Well, yeah, that would be your party game. I don't know if it's really a dexterity game. Does it take any dexterity?
Yeah, you got to run around a table. You got to fist bump appropriately and Happy Salmon appropriately. No, it's not a dexterity game.
Have you punched someone in the face while playing Happy Salmon, David?
There may have been a time I've come close if people are differing heights and we're all trying to get that fist bump in. If you play the game, you'll understand. But I don't know. Also, some would argue it's not even a board game. But anyway,
It is a party game, which is included in the category of board games. So
that's true.
why wouldn't someone count it?
People like to categorize things or gatekeep for that matter. Anyway, let's move on from that topic. And yeah, no, it's still high on my list. Every time I've played it, it's been a lot of fun. You could play it with anyone that can move around a table at least. But if I had to do personal favorites for in the party genre, I've been really enjoying So Clover, and that hasn't gone away. It's such a great game that you can just play pretty much anytime. It's easy to add people. People can drop out anytime, and it's quick. For those of you who don't know it, it's basically cooperative code names. I'll just leave it at that. Just if you like code names, word games, get So Clover. I know you're gonna like it.
I think the problem with it is just you have to have a similar cultural background because you're obviously making cultural references in your clues. So if someone from another country was playing in your group, it'll be trickier for them. They might have references nobody else knows, or he or she won't get any of your references.
It is cooperative, so they won't lose, but they'll have trouble maybe coming up with clues or participating when everyone's working on the puzzle together. But that's kind of a problem in all word games. So with that in mind, obviously, I mean, for any game, you want the right group, and that is a consideration. But as word games go, it's one of the best in my opinion. Also from this company, they also did Just One and a new one called Fun Facts. And I've loved all three of them.
I got to watch the tail end of your Fun Facts game. That seemed really fun, yeah.
It is, and it's very light. It's very much a get to know you kind of game, and it works great as that. So, but I mean, you need at least like 4 or 5 people at the very least to play it. But it's always cool to just bring, even with people you don't even know. It's just fun to learn about people. And then, other than that, though,
it's a marker game. You need markers to play it.
They do come in the box, though. Luckily.
Yeah. I feel like just in general, I get a set of markers and I just have it at my house, and then when the markers in the games, I just take them all out and set them aside, and then when we play one of those games, I just go get the markers, and then it's only when I take the game somewhere else I have to remember to bring markers.
But yeah, moving down the list, Broom Service and Dungeon Lords are still 2 of my favorite games, with unique systems that I wonder why other designers haven't tried to rip them off.
That's the pick up and deliver game with the brave, cowardly.
Yes, brave versus cowardly.
Follow.
I guess Septima kind of has something like that, where it's like.
Does it?
Yes, because you do an action, you get a bonus if other people do the action too.
Yeah, if you match,
right,
you get a bonus, and it raises your suspicion. So it becomes high risk, high reward, yeah.
Right. It's a little different because generally you're encouraging people to... I haven't played the game, I just read the rules. Just FYI, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. But generally it's different because you're encouraging people to... It's like a negotiation. You're like, hey, let's do this action together kind of thing. As opposed to Broom Service, where you're actively trying to predict what the person to your left is going to do so that you don't do that. And you get the big bonus.
Yeah, it's also a must follow.
Yeah, must follow. That's true, like a trick taker.
Like Septima is incentivizing you to follow, and whereas Broom Service you have to follow. It doesn't. If you don't pick it, then you don't pick it. But if you picked it, you have to follow.
You have to play it at the time.
Yeah, you don't have the option. Yeah.
Which really, which is also part of the game because it adds interesting timing. Sometimes you'll draft a card hoping to play it later after you've done a different action, but it may not come out in that order based on what people pick. And I like that kind of planning, that kind of risk reward kind of thing. And then the other game that's kind of like Broom Service is Glass Road.
Oh, Glass Road. Yeah, I remember that.
That one, it's like you pick 5 actions, you're going to do 3 of them, and then you have like 2 spots where if someone else did an action, you can play it and basically siphon off half their action for yourself.
It's only 40%. You pick 5 cards, right? And optimally, the optimum outcome is you've picked 3 cards no one else has picked, and you pick 2 cards the other players have picked. So the idea is you play and they can't follow you, and then when they play, you can follow them. And when you follow, you essentially get a weaker version, but a bonus action, essentially. So the optimum result is you pick 5 cards, 3 of them, hopefully they haven't done, and you lead those, and then they can't follow, and then when they lead, you have a matching corresponding card, so you can follow and get the extra action in. It's similar, but the incentive structure is a little different.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, but I really appreciate it. So it's also a short game, which is nice. It's only like 60 minutes. Yeah, so Glass Road is high up there, although I haven't played it in a while.
Yeah, some people really like the resource wheel thing, which is also something that people. It's a unique thing that not a lot of people have ripped off, which I thought was interesting.
That's true as well, except himself, like Oren Labora.
Yeah. I don't really count it when a designer uses his own previous elements. Like,
His own thing. You don't think Matt Gertz ripped himself off like 4 times?
oh, with Rondell,
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine if he came up with it first or invented it. Why wouldn't you have the right to use your own invention? I mean, that feels natural to me.
I can't say for sure if he invented it, but he certainly popularized it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if he invented it either, but he definitely popularized it.
And in the same regard, Dungeon Lords is like that as well. On the base, it's very simple. You have 8 cards. Technically, you have 6 because each round 2 of them are out, and your opponents know what they are. And on the card is something like gold, food, imps, whatever. So if you want imps, you play the imp card. If you want gold, you play the gold card. You play them all face down, 1, 2, 3. They all go. They're all revealed in a turn order. Everyone reveals their 1, then their 2, then their 3, and you place your guy on the spot that you revealed. The trick is you want to be the second person, usually anyway, you want to be the second person to reveal the card because that's the best spot. And if you're the 4th person to reveal a card, you get nothing. So you don't want to do that. Point is, though, like if somebody else has one of their cards showing, like their gold, meaning they can't play it, then you can play the gold knowing you won't be shut out, but you don't know exactly if you're going to be in spot 1, 2, or 3. And again, you want to be spot 2. And this system really incentivizes actually paying attention to your opponents and what they're doing, which is also why I like the Broom Service Brave Follow thing.
Yeah.
I like that kind of interaction in the game where, you can't play. Well, I guess you can, but you're better off not having your head down and just focusing on yourself. It's better to play off what you expect your opponents to do. But of course, they know that you're going to play off what they do, so they might do something else. But you know that they know that you get the idea.
Also, yeah, each action generally has 3 slots in Dungeon Lords, and the second action is generally the best one. Not to mention, Action 3 is generally better than Action 1. So the action structure of the game subtly incentivizes you to play later and play more risky, because Actions 2 and 3 are a lot better than Action 1. I thought that was a really nice piece of game design.
It's a great system. It's a great game. It does need to be revised a little bit. I could get into that later. It would take a while to tell my gripes about the game, but despite that, I still love the game. Also, it's very brutal. It came out around 2010 or so. It is brutal. You can wreck your game there's 8 rounds. You can wreck your game in like round 2 if you really mess up. And the game's like 2 hours. It's 45 minutes per player, it's 30 minutes per player, but you don't want to play with anything but 4 really. And so I understand that kind of brutalness. It was kind of a thing of the past. You don't really see games like this anymore because people really get frustrated quick and other things. So I feel like a revised version, a little bit nicer, but with all the intrigue and like possibility of not brutalness, but like just the intrigue. That's all you need, really. But the system itself could be adapted into so many ways. I wish designers would explore it and make some really good stuff. Maybe it's a lot harder to do than I know. I don't know. But it just seems it's a really good system that I wish were explored more. And then the top two is just Gaia Project and Through the Ages. I mean, they're just great. Very heavy, pretty heavy. They're not like 4 hour heavy, but they're heavy. Euro games, a lot of choices, a lot of tactics. That's just the kind of stuff I really like. When a game is super heavy, you have a lot of options and there's a lot of ways to go. That's just intriguing to me. That's the kind of game I want. So that's why they're at the top of the list. One thing I will say, though, which I've been sort of getting into recently, is there's a term for Gaia Project, and it's combinatorial. Isn't that a neat word?
Yeah.
Doesn't it sound like the game is full of combos? Nope. Well, I'll tell you what it means. I found the category on Board Game Geek. I was looking at Gaia Project, and it said combinatorial. I guess or what's the category? Or not design, not theme, but like mechanic, I guess. Or I think it's Board Game Family. There's like a Board Game Family tag or something like that. Anyway, so combinatorial, you can click on it, and what it means is after setup, there is no luck.
Okay. Oh, weird. Huh.
In this sense, that's what it means. Yeah. And so, yeah, so no, if you think of Gaia Project, it's interesting because it's such a heavy game that's so deep. After the setup, which can, the board is randomized and you can choose different races or whatever. There's no card draw. There's no rolling dice. There's no anything like that. When you make a federation or get some bonus, you do have a choice of bonuses, but they're all out there. You can see them all. You can plan for what's left. All the tech tracks have set things, and while the bonuses at the top do change, they are set at the setup and they don't change during the game, or they're not revealed during the game. So you can see what you're going for right at the start. But yeah, the whole thing's open. If you know exactly what your opponents are going to do somehow, you could plan the entire game out from the very start. And I found that very fascinating. To have a game that has that tag on Board Game Geek, the decisions you make each time have to be interesting, even if it's the exact same setup each time. So there's going to be options essentially each time you play from the same setup. Sort of like how chess, you can have there's so many different openings you can do. You could do the same opening every time and then like explore later, or you could choose a different opening earlier, or however you want to play it. But the fact that there's no luck means that whatever you do is your strategy. You kind of have to have a game plan the whole time. And to keep the game interesting the whole time without any kind of randomness, I just find that fascinating. And so I've been kind of looking into games like that.
Do you feel like you have them slotted correctly? Gaia Project at 2 and Through the Ages at 1?
I do. And to be fair, it's very important that this is the new story of civilization, not the original Through the Ages, which is still in the top 100 for some reason, even though this new game is basically, I feel like the first version should be removed from the top 100 because this new version is superior in every way. But I think the thing that really puts it over the top for me is just how well incorporated the theme is to Through the Ages. Gaia Project pretty much has no theme. But Through the Ages, well, it's not the greatest practical theme, but what is in a board game, really? Like, no one fights a war by playing cards in real life, right?
You don't.
That's fair. Anyway, the theme is super well integrated into Through the Ages. The building up over time of your civilization, the leaders having different powers, which makes sense for them historically as well as mechanically in the game. Different buildings, kind of different wonders do the same thing, at least in my opinion. Events, that kind of stuff. It's fun to start with a nothing or a very small, basically a little hamlet. I don't know what it is in the game. A very small civilization with very, very primitive buildings, that kind of stuff, and expand it over the game. And then just at the end, you see what kind of civilization you have. That theme is just really fun, and having that integrated into a heavy strategy game just makes it a lot better for me.
All right. I'm actually relatively similar to you guys in that there is not much change in my top 5 list. Mine were Nemesis, Tichu, Kemet, Automobile, and Hansa Teutonica. So Nemesis, still one of my favorite cooperative games. Pretty epic and sprawling. Has some great theme. Some really.
How many games of Nemesis have you played?
Oh, I still haven't played that many. I think 3 or 4. But there were 3 or 4 really fun games.
Okay, I feel like I was there for at least 2 of them. I'm surprised, a game can be so high on a top 5 list if you only play a few times, but that's reasonable. Some games just leave such a huge impression on you, and that you just know.
Well, the thing is, like, I'm not much of a co-op game player.
Oh.
And this co-op game, it gets in the list for the fact that it's a co-op game. It's just something of a very different genre than I usually play. And it's like big and sprawling and epic. And maybe one of the main things is that I do want to play it more. And which is relatively rare for a co-op game for me. Tichu's interesting because I've been learning a lot more card games lately, and that have very interesting mechanics, and have surprised me lately. But I think Tichu still holds it as far as the team aspect and the team dynamic really creates a lot of fun iterations and variations. Because even in most of the new card games I've been learning, there isn't many like team aspects. Kemet is probably the one that's most likely to be replaced. Kemet is the dudes on the map game. One of the reasons is just because it's kind of long. It could be replaced by something like, I thought Yucatan was really good. Oh, Last Light. It was Last Light. I was like, what's the other game where I'm shooting other people all the time? It's something.
I was thinking Last Light might be something that would replace something in the top 5. It seems like you've been playing it a lot recently.
Yeah. Aram really likes it, so he's been requesting it, and I know I've been bringing it more just because John also requested it, and because he hadn't gotten to play a full game until that time we played with you. Because they were both requesting, I was like, okay, I'll just bring it, and then we'll see if we play it or not. But it's shorter, which is a big plus. So it might replace Kemet. The more we talk about it, it just seems to make sense. Let's go ahead and replace Kemet with Last Light. Moving on, we have Automobile. It's still my favorite Martin Wallace game. Like, it's definitely not like any of his other games, but quite frankly, I don't know if there's any game that's like Automobile. How the tech track and the different models of cars work, and then when you draw tiles to form the demand, and then fulfilling the demand. I mean, those are just 3 really, or maybe it's 2. Those are 2 really unique mechanics that I still haven't seen repeated. So that one still holds. And then Hansa Teutonica, that's probably still my favorite game. It holds. So 1 replacement. Last Light, you can replace Kemet.
All right, done.
So that was episode 1, our pilot. Episode 2 was Future Sight. David was hosting this one. Did you know your closing final thought was 7 minutes long?
I have a lot of thoughts.
I was editing it and I was like, oh wow, this is really long. How long does he talk for? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty long. This was a funny one in that, well, the main thing was there's this weird phenomenon on Board Game Geek, which is a game will get an entry on Board Game Geek. It has clearly not come out yet. However, it would be bombarded by ratings from people who have clearly never played it. And the ratings will be either 10 or 0.
I think 1 is the lowest you can go, yeah.
Oh, is it 1? Okay. So 10 or 1, and everybody would either hate on it or love it and give it a 10, even though clearly none of these people have played it.
Or you also get the ones that say like 10 to balance out the 1s or 1 to balance out the 10s.
Which, yeah, I thought was also really silly. So what often happens, I think, is like a publisher want to publish a new game, or maybe it's a new game from Kickstarter, and you want to try to generate some buzz, so you do everything you can to do that. So you give it a board game entry, you submit it, it gets approved, and then you go in it and start rating it, and then you rate it a 10 because you wanted to get as much attention as possible. And then people just turn around with that hype and start following suit. And then there are always the haters who hate that, and then they give the exact opposite rating to kind of, I guess, balance it out as written on their reviews or whatever. And we all thought this was pretty ridiculous. And then, David, you had a game that was basically, let me tell you about this game, and then you can rate it based on only my description. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yep. I think it's a good system.
Do you think people will ever like kind of chill out and stop rating things before they actually play it?
No, because it's not really about the game. It's just about the reaction, I guess.
Yeah, it's about hype and popularity to some extent.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just wish the top 100 or the rating system in general was a little more meaningful. To give the people at Board Game Geek credit, I mean, they try pretty hard to at least weight the rating system so that it can only get into the list if it has X number of ratings. So they're trying, but
If the game is good, it'll get there. But I don't know. Also, part of it is people just tend to be kind of tribalistic, and if they like something and someone else doesn't, they consider it attack on themselves for whatever reason. And it's like this won't stand. Yeah.
that is a weird thing about many aspects in the US.
When you mentioned the balancing things out, it just felt like, gamers are just having a good time. They're playing a game. They're treating it as a game. They're just having fun doing their thing.
That is one way to look at it. It's just, I wish the Board Game Geek Top 100 was really just a reflection of our collective opinion, as opposed to people who've never played a game before just trying to game the numbers.
Yeah, I think I don't know, something about the internet causes it. That's a whole nother topic for social science.
Moving on, we had episode 3, Kingmaking. I really liked our Kingmaking episode. I thought it had a lot of fun sort of anecdotes about weird Kingmaking situations, and we also had the Terraforming Mars disagreement. This was me describing this encounter I had with Donald X Vaccarino, the designer of Dominion. Basically, we disagree about how Terraform Mars works, and it seemed I was in the minority, and you guys thought his point was more or less correct.
It's nice for discussions / arguments like this to have multiple sides, really. Sometimes it can be kind of one-sided.
Could you remind me what Donald's point was? It's on what the discussion was about?
So basically, we were playing Terraform Mars. We were talking about the attack cards, the comets and stuff that destroy plants.
Oh, and he was saying it should affect everyone.
He was saying that this attack doesn't make sense. It's poorly designed. It targets a certain player, which is a bad way to do it. His point is, if he had designed it, he would have designed it so that it made everyone lose plants, which would multiply the effect of the card. And I was saying, like, how would you increase the cost to cover that multiplied effect? He didn't really have an answer for that, and then insisted he was right. And I was like, okay, well, you can think that, but I don't agree. I kind of like that everybody presented their sides or their thoughts on the topic, and then we let the listener decide for themselves like who they agree with. Because obviously, not everyone's going to agree with one person or whatever. That's just a very rare phenomenon. That's what I actually wanted to do more with most of our reviews. I wanted to pick games that we've all played and we had differing views on, and we could just present our differing views on them, and then let the audience decide. I just got tired of listening to other podcasts. They would just review a game they really liked, and everybody would fawn all over it. No one would ever present a different opinion, and it was just the same thing over and over. So I wanted to do something different and present opposing views, and then let the audience decide for themselves. But that was Kingmaking. Yeah, that was a funny one. Episode 4 was Everdell review. Oh, that was Andrew's episode.
That was me, yeah.
That was a good one too. How do you feel about your Everdell review, now that you've played Farshore?
Oh, that's a very good point. Well, I think I mean, probably some recency bias again, but I do think Far Shore is a much better sort of base game. It's like a standalone, so I see it as sort of like an alternate base game. And so its own set of cards. I like the way they did the anchoring system. So in base Everdell, right, certain constructions, certain cards let you play specific critters into them if you had the construction out first. And in Far Shore, they changed it just so that you could do this with any sort of combination. Look, there's less restrictions on what critters you can play for free, but you only get 3 of these free card plays for the whole game. And I like what that did, both in terms of making it less specific, so you didn't have to sort of like keep track for things, as well as it was a fun way to sort of like potentially kickstart your engine, so to speak, or you could just wait till late game to use it for big value points later on, right? It's up to very much up to the player at that point how they want to use it. Yeah, I think having 5 workers instead of 6 just speeds up the game a tiny bit, because at the very end of the game, like that last round can go quite a while. And then the Windrose tiles, there's a bonus thing. There's like a bonus little mini game where, based on when you play a card, if it sort of matches certain conditions, that lets you move your boat around the track for sort of bonus points and bonus rewards that way. So I just think they built on the strengths of Everdell, i.e. the prepare for next season, not having to wait, and the interesting worker placement dynamics from that, and then made it a little bit more engaging, both in terms of like the jump start early on, as well as making each card play feel a little bit, just a teeny bit more relevant. But yeah, I think Far Shore is the better experience for Everdell.
I agree, especially your first point. I've seen games where one person builds a lot of the constructions that have free critters, and then some other person just doesn't get to build any of them. And now it balances on both ends, where each player gets to basically 3 free plays, and then it's up to you. Do you want to do that early? Do you want to do that late? Or and anything in between. I really like that.
Man, I hope I can play it someday.
Yeah, you're the only one of us. Yeah, you haven't played it, so if you get to play it, we can review it.
And yeah, David, I have the copy of Far Shore, so we can work out a time sometime.
Beyond the Sun. So that's the next episode, the Beyond the Sun review.
Sorry, Paul. We all keep liking most of these games that you bring up.
The important thing was that all 3 of us had played the game. I mean, it just didn't make sense to pick a game that 1 or 2 of us have played and the third hadn't. It only kind of works with all 3 of us playing the game, preferably together. Obviously, we're not going to play things we don't like unless, we're just playing a whole lot of new things all the time.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Let's see, Beyond the Sun. I remember we had some argument about it. There was like an aspect of the it was the area majority in the space map board. I thought it was fine. I thought it was like, this is basic area majority. All right, whatever. And then I think, David, you didn't really like it or something?
Yeah, it sucks.
Okay.
Okay, no, it doesn't really suck. Actually, it's not even the area majority that I had a problem with. It's the gold cards in general.
The gold cards?
Yeah, what you use the area majority for. So to take the planets, like holding onto the planets to get more abilities is fine. But if you can use your action to take the card if you have the majority.
Oh, to colonize it, you mean?
So yeah, it's not even the area majority that's the problem. It's like what you get with the area majority, the colonize action. And when you colonize, you get a planet which either gives you a power for the rest of the game, like a bonus, usually for something.
It could be just a one-time bonus.
Yeah, or a one-time bonus. And those are fine. But the planets with the end game bonuses, like points at the end of the game, that's kind of what I have the problem with. Those are not very interesting because and a lot of games kind of do this, which I don't really like, but the initial planets, I guess you can kind of plan for. You can race for them and be the ones to get those planets. But the extra bonus, the points are tied to some part of the game. You're also like, get X more points for having level 3 techs, or, if you have the most people, you get more points, something like that. So if you were doing that, that's great. You just take the card. But if you're not, then you kind of wait for someone else to take the card, and then you try to get something later that more benefits you. The problem with that is they just come up randomly. So you just kind of hope that the next card is good for you. and you don't really have any control or say over it.
Isn't it more just the decision point is, do you colonize the planet or not, right?
Yeah.
When you colonize it, you get the bonus of putting an extra production discount.
I mean, that's part of it too. Yeah.
Depending on what your timing situation is, that can be the more important decision point.
And presumably you aren't trying to colonize the ones that you wouldn't want the points as well. I mean, I think what David is saying about this sort of is still valid.
The air majority part, I think, it's fine. It just wasn't very exciting to me.
Okay. I don't find area majority that exciting in general, but there you go. All right, moving on. We have lifestyle games. Oh, this is the one where we had Brad on.
Oh yeah, I haven't talked to Brad in a while. I hope he's doing all right.
Yeah, I think he's just been really busy. To be fair, we've all been really busy. The tag I put on it was AI ruins everything. So the idea was that basically you have all these lifestyle games, and eventually someone will come up with an AI that will beat you at it. The most dramatic example of this was this Korean guy, Lee Dahl. He was 26 and the undisputed best Go player in the world at age 26, which is pretty wild. And then they played a series of 7 games, and then Lee Dahl won the first game and then lost all the other games. And then he got really dramatic about it and retired. It's like, I'm done. And AI can beat me, so really, what's the point? Okay, the next one was the mailbag episode. So we just answered a bunch of listener questions.
I want to do that one again.
That was fun, yeah.
Honestly, our next episode is probably going to be a mailbag episode.
That'd be great.
Jumping back to lifestyle games real quick, it's funny that like I feel like a lot of games, especially video games, are trending in that direction. Like they want to keep you as engaged and playing as much as possible.
Yeah, I saw this documentary type thing about how you design an algorithm to incentivize engagement, and it's pretty wild. Like it's just something everybody does now. Every game, every site, every social media thing is just all they do is like feed you things to keep you wanting to play more or use it more, I guess. One of the funniest ones I thought was Facebook. Facebook has this one of their strategies is you got to get the kids hooked. That way, the parents will also get accounts to monitor their kids. Okay, moving on. We did the Anachrony review. This was also one we all liked the game, but I think David had the most negatives about it, or just things he didn't particularly like about it.
I did.
It was funny because, like, I think the things you didn't like about it, or some of the reasons I did like the game.
Yeah, which is totally valid.
Yeah, some honest variability, like, oh, this can really create an upset, was how I took the randomness in the game, which I thought provided a good variation and variability in how the game plays out, basically. And then I think yours was, you're working so hard for this. This is too random for something that you're working so hard for.
Yeah, you're working because the game is long.
Yeah, it's a longer game.
I thought it was too random for the length. Is the basic of it.
Oh, okay. So too heavy for. That's very similar to the point I made earlier about if it's a heavy game, it can't have something random way you get points that's not controllable by the players.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
That's true. It does relate to that. Although in this case, I think it's a little more minimal than a whole point in Dune Imperium.
Yeah.
But same idea, though.
You guys feel any differently about Anachrony?
I haven't played it since, so it's very hard for me to feel differently about it.
Fair. You can play it on Board Game Arena if you were so inclined.
I played it a decent amount, so.
I do like their implementation. I'm just going to say it still has the best load system, my favorite load system in any game. Next is, our last episode. Okay, how to build a collection. This was just, how do you pick games to buy?
Yeah, this is very recent, so I don't think I've changed my mind about anything on that one.
Have you guys picked up anything new since then?
I guess in that time I've bought... No, I didn't buy it in that time. Oh, yeah, no, I bought Koala.
Koala?
Wait, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Qawale. It's by the same company that did Quarto, Pylos, Corridor. Yeah, those 2-player abstract made out of wood figures kind of games. I just bought it because it looks nice. And it looks great on a table.
Yeah, I guess I've gotten 2 games that I still haven't played, which would be Septima and Galactic Renaissance. Yeah, Nick Nation wanted to play Galactic Renaissance.
Oh, wait. That game took like several years to come out, didn't it?
Galactic Renaissance?
I believe so. Did it just come out now or?
I just got it. It was during the recording of from last month.
Oh, right.
Was it several years? I don't think it was several years.
Oh, I mean, maybe some years, or maybe several after the announcement, not or something like that. By Matago. I'm looking it up on BGG now. It says 2024.
I thought it was a year. It was a year ago.
But it was Kickstarter, right? Or
Yeah. I was like several years. Doesn't seem right.
I'm sorry, the pandemic has ruined my sense of time, and everything is several years now. Yeah, no, I was really interested in this game. Looking at it, I guess a year ago. I haven't really looked at it since, but I'd be interested in trying this. Oh, sorry, I'm looking on Board Geek at the forums. This person is saying, it's like Inish but better? And yeah, and if it's like Inish, I'm even more interested.
It's like Inish but better, really.
Oh, okay, yeah. Here, according to the description, like we were talking about Knizia's Auction trilogy, this apparently is the second installment of the quote unquote political trilogy by designer Christian Martinez and publisher Matago, with Inish being the first one, which means they've planned a third one. I'm kind of curious what that is. Anyway, yeah, if it's by the designer of Inish, I'm even more interested.
Yeah, it is from the designer of Inish. Yeah, it seems easier to learn than Septima, so I probably will play that one first, but I was really trying to play Septima first before play the older new game as opposed to going to the new game. But we'll see what happens. That brings us up to date. I just wanted to close with why we wanted to do a retrospective episode. Oftentimes, when we make up our minds about a particular topic or game, in general, people have a tendency to lock in their opinions. I think it's a good thing to take an opportunity to look back and see if new information has updated our point of view or our perspective on some games or any given topic. Maybe you have a favorite worker placement game, and then a new worker placement game comes out that you enjoy more. It's okay to have a new favorite worker placement game. In short, you shouldn't be afraid to change your mind when presented with new information. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to continue the conversation with us, you can do that at our Board Game Geek Guild Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast, guild number 4233. Or if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please email us at impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next season.